Hey, this is Notser, and this is Untitled. This week, we're going to be discussing This Week in Review. Oh boy, how fun. I just want everyone to know what happened. For anyone who's curious, anyone who doesn't care, it's not going to be that long. Also, I want to discuss the possibility that it could be a good thing that this has occurred. And what do I mean by that? I'm someone who doesn't need to study for things. I can be extremely successful just off of feel. Just off of pure will. That has always been my success. Never studying for tests, getting B+, A-. That's good enough for me. And that is partially why all this happened. And then finally, I would like to discuss what I intend to do in the future with my content and just exploring every little aspect of it. What's my feeling on the game? There we go. That's a better way of putting it. So, this week in review. I'm not afraid to run from this. So, this week, what happened? I decided to try builds that were not globally accepted builds. Now, what does that mean? So the community, for better or for worse, is sort of like a mafia family. You don't go against the family. And they iron fist this development to the point where they really discourage any exploration of mechanics. Any at all. Whether it be secondaries on a cruiser, inertia fused high explosive on non-standard ships. What's another good example? Even torpedo acceleration on very, very odd choices, like your torpedoes are now actually not outranging your ship detectability and all that stuff, right? So as a community, unfortunately, it really doesn't like dissenting ideas. This does not mean that you personally dislike dissenting ideas, but the community as a whole does. Without a shadow of a doubt, I will put my reputation on that. They don't really like that. So I put out a video for the Des Moines. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I do not know anything about the way the game works. Everything that I have shown or discussed comes off of feel. Comes off of me playing the game. What I can perceive just playing it. I don't know any of the gun velocities, for instance. I don't know which shells have high HE damage, which shells have high AP damage. I don't know any of that. Some people are shocked by the fact that a community contributor does not know all of that. And the reason I don't know all of that is I was extremely successful without it. The reason I lead targets out of a turn in my torpedo examples is because that's what I've picked up through playing the game. The reason that I do a lot of the things in the game is because I have played it enough to have a feel for the game. Okay? So, when I say I have no idea how they calculate HE penetration, AP penetration, the velocity of guns, the armor layout of the ships, you might say, BS. I don't believe you. There's no way this is possible. It's possible, baby. I just didn't care enough to learn. Okay? Now, I'm sorry for that if that offends you. But that's the truth. So, through this process of creating the inertia fused high explosive video for the 203s and then the 220 Moskva and then doing the torpedo accelerated Soviet destroyers and the secondaries on the German cruiser, I also channeled anger that I felt for a very small section of the community towards most people. And I'm sorry for that. I will not share my opinion in videos. Period. At least not in regular videos. I just think it's a better way to handle it. I cannot be responsible for what I can and can't say. I think it's completely reasonable to expect people to be polite to each other, no matter how smart or dumb they perceive them. I don't think being ugly to someone is acceptable, no matter how ill-informed they are. I'm one of those people that your personality, the way you treat other people, is more important than the actual knowledge you have. So for me, it is very offensive to read people be hostile towards each other. And I'm not just saying, oh yeah, Notser, make sure that you know this is true and false. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you are an idiot. You need to die. You are ruining this community. That is where I draw the line on the way people respond to my content and people who enjoy my content, right? I think that's a reasonable request to not say those things. I think there's a very, very obvious line between someone who is critiquing you and someone who is just a a-hole or an a-hole. He's rocking that a-hole for sure. I don't think it's I think it's black and white. I think that is black and white, plain as day. There is nothing. There is not a single thread where I feel, oh, you know what? Maybe there's some validity to this extremely hostile comment. No. If you're going to be hostile towards me or anyone in my community, you might as well just leave. I don't care how smart or dumb, informed or not informed they are, you don't attack people for existing or being a person. Individual attacks are not acceptable. You can critique, discuss the merits of strategies or builds or whatever, but don't attack people. And don't suggest that they are dumb or something like that. That's the line I draw. And I think that's a reasonable line, right? I think everyone's going to be, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Yeah, I think that's completely reasonable. So we made the videos. I'm not bringing it back. I don't really care. What it's done is it's allowed me to explore the way HE penetration works, because I've never actually done that. And you know what I discovered? I discovered that the community is wrong. Apparently, at least this is what I've been told, the community has globally accepted the idea that HE penetration rounds up to whatever the value is. And that's wrong. It doesn't round up, it rounds to the nearest whole number. And if that nearest whole number is not greater than the armor that it is presented by, it will not do any damage to it as HE. It will shatter on the ship. HE penetration is not important for the possibility of getting a citadel. HE penetration is important for just being able to do damage to the section of the ship. If your HE cannot penetrate the section of the ship, it will shatter on contact. And I didn't know that. So we did all that exploration. I'm going to incorporate that into my videos. You see how I talk about why I'm deciding to torpedo in that moment, why I'm using hydroacoustic, why I'm using my smoke, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? You're now going to get, why am I shooting the bow? Why am I shooting the stern? This is why. I have inertia fuse high explosive. What does this allow me to penetrate now? That's how I'm going to talk about it, because I know this now. I did not know this before. I had no idea what the HE penetration value came from. I didn't know it was 1/6 of the gun caliber. I didn't know that German battleships get 1/4 of the gun caliber. I didn't know that. So, I'm sorry I didn't know that. I really am. What can I say? I make the content that I feel is fun and entertaining. If you don't like it, that's fine with me. You know, there's plenty of other content out there for you to enjoy. You could, watch whatever you want. It's fine with me. But that's where all of this stands. That's exactly where all of it stands. We made inertia fuse high explosive videos for the Des Moines, and the Des Moines, by default, we'll just go through this right now, because why not, is a 203mm gun, and if you divide 203 by 6, you get 33.83 repeating. And the way the game does is it rounds to the nearest whole number, so it's 34mm of penetration. 32 is really a big deal. It's a really big deal. That is basically the bow and stern armor of every single battleship at tier 8, 9, and 10. If you can cross that threshold, that's the most important threshold. 32 millimeters. 32 millimeters is the most reasonable threshold to cross. Now, are there more thresholds that you could cross, and would they be important? Sure. Absolutely. But for me personally, I don't know about you, but most of my time, I'm not in a position where my HE shell is going to be doing damage to the decks of ships. It just really isn't a part of normal gameplay for me. For me, normal gameplay is between 15 and 10 kilometers. Now, if we had an inertia fuse high explosive with the Des Moines, it would jump it up from 30, what was it, 33, right, or 34? 34 up to 43.98 repeating. 983 repeating. So that would be 44. That doesn't really get me anything, right? There's not a lot of sections of the ship where 40 millimeters is this super threshold that you pass. It just isn't. So in that sense, it's very irrelevant. Very irrelevant. The threshold that they use is the middle section of the American battleships, and that's not really important. The middle deck section, not really important. For the Moskva, 220 millimeters divided by 6 is 36.6 repeating, so it would go to 37. And then we times that by 1.3, and then it goes to 47.6 repeating. Still not really getting up to a threshold. Plus, the inertia fuse Moskva is laser guns. Very rare do you ever get to dive on the deck because of that. Because it's just so forceful with its velocity, it's really not going to be easy. You're going to sort of like, you're going to shoot at a ship, and it's either going to hit the superstructure or hit the guns or just go into the water because it's just going so straight and so quick that it's really hard for you to gauge how it's going to hit the deck. And the Henry, 240 divided by 6 is 40. And then we times that by 1.3, and we can get 52. Oh, that opens up so many. Honestly, it doesn't. Honestly, it doesn't. Yeah, the deck space of some German battleships is allowed to. It's not worth it. To me, personally, the most important thresholds that you could cross is the side of the ship, the bow and the stern. That is the most important part of the ships. That'll be 80 or 90% of the shell damage that inertia fuse could assist you with. The deck space right up against a superstructure is so limited that it's very rare that I hit it straight on and not the deck. Or not the superstructure, right? Yeah. So, in that sense, and if you don't know where to shoot the ship because you have all these benefit or these changes, you're not going to take advantage of inertia fuse high explosive, and it's a complete waste of time. You know, I did my testing with the Hubadovsk 130 millimeter guns have a shell penetration of 21.6 repeating, which is 22. And if we times that by 1.3, we get 28. Well, that's a really important threshold to cross. You've basically allowed the Hubadovsk to penetrate all the, well, do HE damage. It's sort of confusing the way they suggest that HE penetrates, but to do HE damage to a section of the ship, 28 is above pretty much all cruisers, and 22 is pretty much below all cruiser bow and stern. So you have now allowed your ship to do damage to every single cruiser bow and stern. That's a really important threshold to cross. That's a much more important threshold to cross than the Henry's 240 to allow you to penetrate the German decks. I think the bow and the stern are the most important, and through doing all this research, we've discovered all this stuff. Well, at least I have. Now, maybe you knew it, but I didn't. I honestly didn't. But now I do. And now I have real data to back up my claim that I feel like having 130 millimeters with inertia fuse high explosive will probably be a superior build to the other builds that they might suggest if you're interested in dealing with cruisers that go bow on. You know, Des Moines all the time. There was an instance where a Des Moines was going after me, and I had no other shot on the Des Moines. I was presented with his bow, his guns, and a little bit of superstructure. Without inertia fuse, the only legitimate location that you should fire is the superstructure. With inertia fuse, I should shoot at his bow. That's just the way the thresholds work. And you just don't hear people talk about that in their videos. You know, they might make a video, they might not comment at all on what they're doing. They might make some goofy comment about how stupid their teammate is, or how they're really upset that aircraft carriers are bad, or, you know, whatever. It takes all types of content creators, all the types, but it doesn't actually help with the problem itself. It doesn't help me if you talk about how this person's made a mistake or this person hasn't made a mistake, and you gloss over basic gameplay elements that would improve the player and the player base's playstyle and success rate, right? So yeah, be prepared for even better content, because that's where we're going with this. After researching it and putting in the time and effort, I will absolutely tell you why I am shooting that section of the ship, what section of the ship becomes unlocked for damage potential. It's a very important aspect of the game. I look forward to making more content for you. I appreciate all the support. I really do. I love reading all the comments. I do indeed read, and thank you. Thank you so much for all the support you provide me, both on Twitch and on YouTube. It means a lot. It really means a lot. I love doing this. You know, do you get tired of the game? Yes, but I don't get tired of you, and that's the important thing. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time. See ya!